And we're back, everybody. Emily Maden, welcome to the show. So thrilled to have you back, my friend. We got a lot to catch up on since last time.
Yes, absolutely, Amy. So happy to be here in your purple top and purple earrings. It looks so good.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. We just have another thing in common. You told me that your favorite color is purple, as is mine.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're royalty of another lifetime.
Well, I've learned a lot through my biogeometry training that purple and ultraviolet is actually a very high energy color. And from what I've learned about learning about light nutrition, that on the spectrum of light, you've got the red and far infrared on one end and ultraviolet is on the other, which is always very interesting because it's a very fast, spiritual, esoteric energy to it, which I never knew, but it's ever since I was a child, it was my favorite color.
It's funny because before I was maybe when I was in my disconnected space, like it feels like lifetimes ago, but like I guess it was only 5 years ago. I was so attracted to the color red. And then as I started to connect to my body and my womb, I just fell in love with lavender, and like everything had to be this lavender all around me. So I feel like it's part of my, life force aura, sexual cauldron. Like that's what it speaks to for me.
It's so funny you said that because I've had the same thoughts. Like I actually have my red lights on right over there, my sauna space red light therapy. And I use it every day. And I think about that a lot because, red is that primal chakra root energy that we all desperately need. We are so out of touch with, and we're going to talk about that today, getting embodied and just being in touch with our primal pleasure, physical abilities, instincts, just that whole component of ourselves that has so much shame and emotional baggage and everything. And I do feel, I'd love your thoughts, Emily. Do you think that kind of having red in your environment, lights, clothing, whatever, will kind of help aliven that energy in us?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I was in the physical, but I wasn't maybe in like the primal pleasure, the primordial pleasure, as you're calling it. But I also think that the lavender is like the upper feminine energies, and maybe the red is the lower feminine energies. And they're different energies, but like it's our responsibility as women to get to know these different feminine energies. Like the breasts are all about like beauty and truth and love. And then when you drop down into your pelvis, it's a lot more like intense, earthy, like grunty kind of energy, like shake your ass kind of energy. So how do we unite those energies? And I know we're going to go in and talk about that today. So I think it's important for women to play in all the fields of color that's available to them.
That's just such an important point. And I did mention in the intro, your first appearance, episode 101, which was channeling the warrior and the goddess, embodying the sacred feminine for women who have strong masculine energy, which is Awakening Aphrodite. That's the whole premise of my show. And to your point, just to recap a little for those who might not have heard that, you were an international CrossFit champion. So when you just mentioned that you had been in your physical energy, per se, as an elite athlete, yet you really weren't in some of the higher spiritual and the pleasure aspects of that physical energy. Can you kind of expand on that for us? Because I think you're just hitting on something that a lot of women experience, at least those of us who exercise, who are fit, whatever, right? We're still not in touch with half of that feminine physicalness that we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think too, even when the words like feminine and masculine come up, women immediately have some kind of thought form of what the feminine looks like. And it's actually not their own specific signature of feminine. It's what society or maybe what a relationship, like a partner, deemed feminine. And I know for myself, like I always felt unfeminine because I wasn't into the cultural standards of femininity, which was painting your nails, like being really concerned with like your face, not ever getting dirty, wearing a ton of makeup, never engaging in sport because you wouldn't want to be on the same competitive level as like a boy, or you wouldn't want to be able to beat a boy at sport. And so I grew up really feeling inherently like broken in terms of like, well, I must just not be a true woman. So I'm going to go explore a ton of power and freedom, because what I saw in femininity growing up was not power and not freedom. It looked to me like a trap. And so that was my concept of femininity. And now it's much, much different. And also, I even think our concept of masculinity, when I hear women say now, like, oh, I'm a more masculine woman. Well, a lot of us are running the distorted masculine, which is this hyper-driven, get out of my way, I'll do what it takes, grind. And that's not the masculine. Like the true masculine is peace, is centeredness, stillness, is freedom. And so when we start to explore our own definitions, and that's really, I think, the most empowering thing about the work that I do, is that I'm not telling you what femininity is for you. It is your own inward exploration to land in what it feels like in your sacred masculine and what it feels like in your sacred feminine, the divine interweaving and dance between the two. So I think it's really important to, like, you know, when me and Amy and all the women that are listening to this show, like, you have your own specific feminine essence that wants to come through, and it's going to completely, it's the other side of the coin, or the duality, or the dark side of the mountain, that's going to only support everything that you already are and amplify this big spirited, like, go get dirty, go get a little wild energy that is so wonderful. I guess as a more masculine pulled woman, you also have this really tender, juicy, soft feminine pull. And when we start to explore the breadth and depth of that, oh my gosh, it's just like the sacred inner union, the sacred marriage within that nobody can take, nobody can touch, because it's you. That's all I care about. You're finding you. And that's what pleasure is all about. You experience more of you within whatever experience you're having.
See, what you just said is so important, because I think in culture nowadays, there's so much gender confusion. And where is the narrative that we are all of these emotions? And like you said, it's a spectrum, right? And I mean, there's some days, Emily, where I'm working with my chickens and cleaning out the coop, and I'm out in the muck with the barn, and I am all about dirty, and I'll wear the same outfit for 3 days in a row. Okay, I mean, I'll change my underwear, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not in the shower. Like, sure, I brush up at night. You know what I mean? But trust me, I'm not what they would say camera ready. And I'm good with that. And that doesn't make me a masculinized woman. That just, to me, Emily, it's like just being all of who we are. So what? Like, that is a big part of me. And I like being physical and dirty and strong. And I grew up as a tomboy. I didn't wear dresses for like 10 years. I mean, I went to my first communion and I put pants on under my little dress in the bathroom, and I got yelled at by the nun. And, like, that would have been so screwed up as a kid. These days, they would have tried to turn me into a boy or something. I mean, thank God they didn't. But that was just all of who I was and discovering who I was. And I remember I went over a friend's house the other day, and he had a 3-year-old boy, and the boy had a little dress on, and he just was wearing his sister's dress because he thought it was fun. And then he took it off later because he was sick of it and he couldn't run right because he had, and it doesn't mean he wanted to be a girl. So my point is it's so sad for me when people seem to contribute to the confusion of children and teens and young people who are trying to just experience life, feel something, let it pass through, try that on literally and figuratively, see if they like it. And to your point, see if that is who you are. But you're just testing the waters. You're living, and you're the whole spectrum to find you. But that doesn't mean it is you yet. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think a lot of those people that are suggesting or trying to label and categorize something like a childhood or the maturation process from child to adolescent, those people are very confused and disconnected. And I would say are very steeped in medical materialism culture, which just further disconnects you from spirit. Because, and I think Paul Chek talked about this. I loved, he said this, like, you can't only just have science without the spirit, and you can't just only have spirit without the science. And it's, again, it's that duality that we need to bridge together, because there's so much confusion going on. And adults who are confused or disconnected and have not gone to the depths possibly of their own exploration of their pure life force energy or their sexual energy, contacted that, are then coming in and manipulating or coercing someone who's highly vulnerable to then,
and who's experimenting because they don't know, they're just a kid.
Know. Exactly. Right. I too was a tomboy. Like, I remember I was such a tomboy. I cut my hair really short.
Me too.
And I wore basketball clothes. And at the basketball camp, they put me on the boys' side because they thought I was a little boy.
Me too. I used to yell at people if they called me a girl. I literally would say, I'm a boy.
Totally.
Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was okay. But if somebody came up to me and started placing these little seeds in my mind of what I should be, or maybe I should think about, being a boy, that would have been entirely damaging, and also completely, what's the word? Like, just throwing a wet blanket on my innocence. And I think it's really important that we protect innocence for as long as possible, which is, sometimes I want to be a total tomboy, and sometimes I want to, it's for me to this day, it's still like when I'm getting dressed, I'm like, do I want to wear a skirt? Because that means I might not be able to kick up into a handstand if I want to do that. Right.
Great.
And then sometimes I'll wear the skirt, but that would have been such a disservice to my exploration as a child, for sure.
It's all I can think about these days when, reading the latest news and all the transgender surgeries and all that. And then all the remorse that's starting to be covered up that of these people having it done. And then afterwards, and the research showing that it's like 85% of them regretted a couple of years later. And I mean, that's all I could think about. Like, that could have been me. That could have been me.
I think it speaks to our culture is not great. Our society isn't great at stewarding young people. We really are not good at that, as well as our elderly, right? But, and this is something that I'm actually going to be offering in the summer next year, and is so deep on to my heart, is stewarding young women to really know their bodies and not just get on this train of hormonal birth control at, as soon as puberty hits, and then fathers who have a ton of shame and projected shame and terror around female sexuality. And honestly, I think all of this is just terror around female sexuality, and coming out in kind of subversive or strained ways, sideways ways. It's all like this projection or a spin-off of something that is so fearsome to behold. But if a woman really knows how to be in her body and know that it's safe to be a woman in her body, and know that her sexuality is really potent and something that can be channeled wisely, that's what we need. We need to start stewarding young women into loving their vulvas, into understanding that it's okay to have pleasure and it's okay to self-pleasure, understanding consent. All of these, and consent as an embodied experience, not a politically correct overtone. Which
what do you mean by that? Can you clarify that?
Yeah, I would say that we talk about consent culture a lot, and I probably won't speak to this all that well, but from my understanding and what I see, and what I was taught even in my 20s, it's talking about consent culture. It's disembodied. Because if you always have these rules of engagement for between a man and a woman, you're actually missing out on just like the humanness of it, of like experiencing pleasure in my body and being able to ask for that, being able for that to slow down, understanding how that energy moves throughout my body. And that when a woman's more embodied in that, her partner will listen. And so I feel like sometimes I understand where consent culture comes from, but it comes from a place of disembodiment in general, or like systemic disembodiment. So the more that a woman can get into her body, the more that she can accept her sexual energy and heal those parts that have been disrupted by societal stories or other people's, poor relationships in the past, or how her mother and father engaged, the more she can wield her sexual energy in a really powerful way and return humanness to it instead of being stuck in the politically correct overtones that I think everyone is tiptoeing around these days. It's really uncomfortable.
It's like what you're saying is it's not an intellectual journey.
That's perfectly put.
Yeah. Well, I do want to get more into pleasure, but let's just take a pause and back up a lot, because since the last time we were on the show, one of the biggest development, even though you've had two huge ones, should we start with the husband? Or should we start with the baby? Oh my goodness, everybody. She's been married and is now a mother since our last show. So bring us up to date on these two epic occurrences.
Yeah, well, I think the last time I talked to you, me and my, I call him my cosmic champ, because he really has made me into the woman that I've always yearned to be. And like,
is this the same guy as before?
Yeah.
The same. Okay, so this is not a new guy. This is the guy from a few years ago.
Yeah, his name is Rob, and he's my cosmic champ. And he, like, when I was talking to you last time, I was really, my work was just starting and like really opening up, because I had such he was the riverbed to my river, and so we got married. I mean, we were spiritually married under Mount Assiniboine up in Canada with our own ritual, but I guess we got officially like the state involved marriage after that, and also had a celebration back in Canada of our wedding. And then like a week after our wedding up in Canada, I was pregnant, and then we went and lived at Paul Check's place for
3
months.
In like an RV, right?
Yeah, a little RV. And so that was a really cool experience. And then 6 months later after that, I guess it would have been 9 months later, I birthed baby Hawk. And his name is Hawk Wayfinder Maden. And he's 7 months old now.
And he's so beautiful. Oh my God.
Cute. He's a little cherub. And he's been helping Rob and I really find the way of like our true north. And it's been an experience where I have landed in motherhood. So grateful, so grateful that I had been doing all this preparatory work in my sexuality, in my womb, in my tissues, in my womanhood, because that really helped me traverse this rite of passage that is so intense. Two rites of passage. Yeah, exactly. The marriage was very intense too. So it's really informing all of this like next body of work that is coming out for 2025, and has also deepened my attunement for pelvic integration, which is the work that I do now here in San Diego.
How so?
I feel like on the spiritual journey, or like the physical journey, the spiritual journey, the emotional journey in the birth portal has dilated my sensory apparatus. Like I feel way more. I know way more. My intuition has just become so strong. And that presence really makes a difference when I'm touching a woman's body and feeling her and knowing knowing what needs to be held and how the session needs to look. So listening to the tissues more instead of trying to make something happen.
You're making my mind go back because as we mentioned in your first appearance on Awakening Aphrodite, I had hired you for a personal session, and remind me again, Emily, you call it pelvic integration work? Yep. Okay, so obviously it was an extremely intimate, private session. And I just remember that I think it was intense for both of us. Maybe you were just starting at the time, but I just remember feeling your unbelievable softness, but you held me, like you got me, like it was such a beautiful experience for me because, again, I had just met you, right? And it was like, okay, here we are. And, but you were just so, I just wish every woman could experience, okay, so just to be frank, sure everyone understands what we're talking about. We're talking about intimate touching, connection, in your private parts, the whole thing. And I just remember for the purpose of trying to heal and integrate these parts of your body, that needed it, obviously. But I'm just sharing that I wish every woman could experience being with another human who was in reverence of her body the way you were with mine. It wasn't even like you had to do anything, It was just even that was healing. I just got goosebumps. That was healing for me. Because, Emily, as you know all very well, back in the day, that's how women's bodies were treated. Women's bodies were sacred. Women's bodies were the vehicle, the vessel to the divine. And cultures revered the feminine. And that's how men got their spiritual connection. That's how men got their spiritual downloads. That's how they got their rites of passage. That's how the culture's advanced. We don't have that anymore. And it was such a beautiful gift to me of just having someone in that kind of energy. And I can only imagine, like, let's just say I'm heterosexual, but if I was a woman to have a relationship with another woman like that, like as a relationship ongoing, I can't even imagine what I would be like if that was an ongoing thing. And that was just a one session, Hopefully with a man, that'll happen one day too.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing. And I think back to our first session and how I've grown as a practitioner and how
I can't even imagine because you were great then.
Oh, thank you so much. And how I hold space now. And I think, especially I love being on this podcast. Everything you just said was so beautiful, by the way, you just on the money. And I think that women who are more masculine pulled, like the true masculine, we can hold enormous space. We can really hold another human being and we can really hold another woman. So this is why I love doing this work, because when a woman remembers the original blueprint of reverence for her body, she cares for herself differently. She moves through the world differently. She speaks her voice differently. And all the things that we've been receiving like scraps from in our modern culture will change if a woman has that reverence for her body again. And particularly some ways that I'm feeling that lately, we take scraps from gynecological Western medicine. There's no way that, why are we accepting scraps in terms of cold clinical touch, cold speculum, painful procedures, lights, multiple people in the room. This is unacceptable. And no consent, using shitty lube products to just do this procedure. And they're just well, sorry, this is how it is. No, No, and oftentimes I have women who experience the work that we do in pelvic integration, and they go back to their gynecologist and they make different demands.
Nice.
Like, no, I want to have a mirror. I want the speculum to be warm.
Nice.
I want to just be one person in the room. I don't want my feet up in the stirrups. Like, I don't want a medical blanket over my legs. Like, I want to be engaged in my own pelvic health. And that's just one example where we're accepting scraps. Now, when it comes to our lovers, like our men, they also were brought up in a culture that's super disconnected, right? And it's like the overculture of, porn, circumcision. Their only worth as a man is their wallet and their ability to like have conquest and power. And which they often express through sex. And so for women, we have to understand that like we are the energetic attuners. And so when we get to know our own bodies and to know our own reverence or have reverence for that body, we're going to be inviting that masculine, which there are many, many, many good men who have good intentions. They just also have forgotten. And so with that knowing of yourself and knowing of your pleasure and being able to use your voice, you're going to be inviting them back to their true authority, which is to connect a woman's upper and lower feminine energies. So she may be that spiritual conduit. So she may be the oracle again. So she can rest fully in her feminine and receive all the downloads from spirit, and then transmit that to the world or to her partner or to her family.
Okay, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but God, the $1 million question is, where do we start? Like, how? I can hear the people listening and watching saying, how do we do that? Because Emily, you called in, I think you called him your epic king. How do we call in our epic kings, or at least upgrade our current lover or partner? How do we do that, Emily? Where do we start given where we're at right now?
Yeah. And I love this question. And, maybe a couple of years ago, I would have been like, it just starts like, let's just start with the yoni. And honestly, this is what I've realized, that this is deep repair work around connection with spirit or God.
Okay.
And for most of us, like I know you grew up in like a Catholic household, right? We have
good memory.
Yeah, we've been told that there's something between us and God. And you're inherently shameful. And especially as a woman, you need to be controlled.
Well, look at the Garden of Eden and Eve, and the second born, first to sin. She's the reason for the downfall of all of humanity. The woman. Forget about the shame of sex and masturbation and all that, and marriage. But sorry, I interjected. But go ahead.
Okay.
That's all in the back of my head is every day of my life.
Well, and that's the thing. It's even though you may not be a religious person or grew up in a religious household, it's the very fabric of our culture.
Yeah,
like. It informs all of the sexual suppression and the hypersexuality that we see, and the commodification of sexuality as well. I call this the split between the sacred and the sexual. And this lives in the consciousness of every man and every woman. Yeah. And the only way to stop this perpetuation of this very painful split, which drives women to suppress their pleasure, especially as they get into like motherhood or menopause, like that it's not important. And then also drives like men into cheap thrills or porn or like addiction to pornography, is this split. And the more that we come back to the true essence of our bodies, which is our erotic body, our pleasure body as women, we're in real time healing that sacred sexual split, which is when we do, it's deeply rooted in God and as expression, as beauty, as truth. And that pours over from your body into all of your relationships. And so this really is like, I would say step one is the deep repair work between your relationship with spirit, your relationship with God. And it took me a long time even to just say the word God, because I so abhorred religion and everything they talked about, like with women and hanging out with like Christian people who it just felt so awkward, and having like Mormon cousins. And it's just like, there's this weird suppression around it with women and their expression and their sexuality. And so we access God by going into the goddess, and the goddess is your body. And when we start inhabiting the goddess and having a relationship with the goddess, which is your body, I mean, your breasts, the way you look at yourself, the way you feel yourself, your belly, your vulva, your vagina, your womb, your cervix, like as you start remembering that these are sacred parts and they're not just left for doctors or lovers to access, you now are opening up a channel between your goddess body and spirit or God. And it's like this secret handshake that you have. And you truly start to become the spiritual authority, like you were speaking about, Amy. So all of this to say that step one is starting to come home to your body. And this is the work that I teach. Even just breathing into your belly and softening your belly and staying in your belly instead of wanting to vacate there. And you can just breathe into your belly right now, and it just feels so good.
Which, let me just interject, which requires letting your belly go. I mean, that's the whole thing too, culturally, right? Trying to be skinny and have a small waist and cinch it in. And people aren't even breathing right because, to your point, I love that that's so beautiful and simple, but hard for a lot of people to actually do. I mean, I'll tell people that and they can't do it because they're so used to holding that area tight to try to not look fat or whatever, right? And it's like, forget about softening their belly, which, to your point, that's where it all starts.
That's where it all starts. And when you start breathing, like you could just literally spend 5 minutes a day breathing into your belly and not letting yourself be pulled, compartmentalized, which women, because of these sacred sexual splits, have been compartmentalizing everything in their life. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, this is my work self, this is my daughter self. Like, we need to start bringing it all back together into the vital whole, which is where there's no denial of your sensual energy. There's no denial that you are a sexual creature. You're living, breathing, embodied feminine mixed with your delicious divine masculine.
I love that. That's such an important point about compartmentalizing because, while you were talking, it made me think about how getting embodied and accessing the goddess is about expanding your eroticism out of the bedroom, right? It's about, that's kind of your essence, and it's like the way you do everything almost. Well, maybe not everything when you're really focused on something, but you know what I mean? A lot. Like your sexual connection kind of, it spills into other areas of your life very subtly. It could be just a new way you hold your cup of tea. Your hand is softer. Like just something that simple, right? Like you notice you're doing the vice grip on your steering wheel, or little things like that, like bringing that sexual eroticism into your being during your life, not just when you're having sex.
Totally. I love that. And I can tell that you're really embodied in that, Amy, because...
Well, I'm working on it.
Well, we all are, right?
Yeah, right.
And what is this? Like, we talk about sexual energy, but it doesn't just like everything's sexual energy. Everything is life force. And like you're in a sexual relationship with everything in your life. And so is it a point of tension or is there a tensionlessness? Nice. And how you make love is how you make life. How you make life is how you make love. And Barry Long said that, not me. But
that's good. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. And so are you able to receive the pleasure of sun on your face? Are you able to receive the pleasure of dipping your foot into a bathtub? Are you able to receive the pleasure of your child's hug and kiss? Or, like you said, holding your favorite mug of coffee? This is erotic power at its essence. And most of women their brains only link up to their clitoral glands, like the very tip of their clitoris, where they're using a vibrator to just have a little like orgasm that builds up in tension. And then there's a release.
Yep.
But
which is masculine.
Totally. Yeah. And yeah, the culmination, the ending, right? But
and the tension.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when we're inhabiting deeper parts of our anatomy, embodied anatomy, like our G pad, the sensation in our cervix, the sensation in the K spot, like there's all these, like your breasts, your nipples, your belly, the back of your neck, like your whole body becomes this pleasure conduit, a pleasure instrument. We start to experience more oxytocin moving through our body instead of kind of this cortisol and dopamine increase in tension and then a drop. But oxytocin, when we're inhabiting our breasts, our body, our pelvic space, now we're in, let's say we put on some rose-colored oxytocin glasses and we're able to be open to all the pleasures of life, and then invite our partners to also awaken to all of the pleasures of life. And there's a slowness, a slowing down. And even as I talk about this, I noticed that like my pelvic floor was a little bit tight before. And I'm just breathing in and like letting that all relax and soften.
Me too.
And come
I'm
down.
enjoying this so much. This is very enjoyable for me.
Right? Yeah. Right?
It's just, I don't know. It's like I'm just vibing with it. It's like, yep, we're in relationship here.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
We're in relationship.
And it just feels it feels good. And I'd love for you to expand more on this idea of being able to fully receive, because you said that, and that is so important, Emily. What is going on with women? And that was me. I mean, like the independent woman, right? And the get shit done and, type A and successful, and that's all beautiful. But why do we have such a hard time receiving without feeling we have to reciprocate, right? Like just receive it fully, feel it, be grateful, and that's it. Like, what's going on with that? Because I've gotten better at that, but I didn't even realize I was bad at it.
I know. I love that. Receiving is the hardest. Giving is so easy. It can be easy.
Yeah.
But it's because we haven't really built any ground in receiving, the depth of receivership. Because when we do start receiving, parts of us start to come up that are really uncomfortable. Parts of us that have been wounded in the past, parts of us that feel not worthy, parts of us that feel undeserving, parts of us that go into fawn and needing and stop that depth of reception. The guilt comes up. And we have to do work as feminine beings to include and incorporate and integrate these parts of ourselves that are just the conditioning. Let's say they're like the little weeds in the garden that do produce some beautiful flowers, but they're not the main bouquet or the main garden patch. And I think that can be really uncomfortable for a lot of women, because the deeper you go into reception, the more reception of yourself means receiving all of your parts, right? All these parts of you. And as you get closer to more familiar with desire that runs through your body, which desire is like the sun, it's always shining. You're always going to have these new desires coming through your body. And that's really the beauty of being a woman.
Yeah.
You don't have to act on all of them, and your partner gets to choose what he wants, and I'm talking in a heterosexual sense, on what he desires to fulfill for you. Mm-hmm. But often that desire is shrouded in this deep shame. And all the times that we freeze, fight, flight, and fawn, or that desire was, made fun of, or told that it was bad or wrong, right? Religion, indoctrination.
Or used against you, because when you receive, you can feel very vulnerable and like almost like that can backfire, because then you are vulnerable and then someone, and you know what I'm trying to say? If you've had a bad experience with it, it can kind of come back to bite you and you're like, well, I'm never doing that again.
Exactly. I'll never be that vulnerable again.
Right.
But the tantrikas would say that you can still alchemize even in those places where someone is becomes unconscious and creates violence against the feminine. And when I say violence, I'm not just saying physical violence, but I'm saying oftentimes, and this is what I'm deeply working on with women right now, their partners fall into an unconscious taking energy. And that's where and women, whether they're conscious of it or not, feel very unsafe in that place. Their body literally tenses up and you can feel it. Your partner vacates being with you, say in intimacy, and he goes somewhere else.
So when you mean unconscious taking, you're not talking physically. Like, can you just expand on that so we understand exactly what you mean? Because I think you're onto something, because the safety is paramount.
Yes. And women, we can't name it. And I couldn't name this for a long time until I figured it out. And I didn't figure it out. I felt it. And Rob and I have created so much safety in our sacred union that this really started to come up and show itself. But unconscious taking energy is when either partner, I do it too sometimes, and I still do it to this day, and we recognize the energy now, but you're taking from the other person for your own pleasure.
Oh,
and you're not unconsensually, right? If we go back to consent, you're not explicit about it.
I've heard that termed masturbating with someone else's body.
Exactly.
Yeah, that happens all the time. And with women, I mean, I guess this is just like open kimono for me. Once again, revealing my intimate personal life with the world. But I'm sure I'm not alone, and I'm doing it with the hopes I might connect with someone else who was struggling with the same thing. But, just kind of like your body is for his pleasure. Kind of like it's kind of, and maybe, I don't know, maybe that was a backward ego boost for me, like that he, was so into it or whatever. But it's, how sad is that? It's like, no, my body, I got to reclaim my body. My body's my pleasure. Sure, I want, us to enjoy each other, but it's primarily mine for me. And it's not all about what you're getting out of it.
Yeah. And I think this is what you're speaking of, is the habituated model of dopamine-driven sex.
Oh.
Where it's a habituation. It's, again, our men have grown up with porn. Many men have. Yeah. And women have been told that their pleasure is bad. So they don't feel, they're numb. So it's two numb people trying to get to some place of pleasure, and they're trying to get there fast, right? And it's nobody's fault. Like, that's the thing. But with women, when we start to recognize this, and you may even feel this as you're talking or listening rather to this podcast, you start to feel some rage come up in your body, because yes, all the times you have overstepped your body because you had no idea how to be and feel in your body. And so you thought sex was just this way. All women, like in your family, talk, well, oh, sex is just this way. It's this, it's like, we even hear about duty sex a lot. Duty sex to like make sure your partner, your man is satisfied. But that's the type of culture we've grown up in. And it's, when we come back to the home of our bodies and start listening to our bodies, and by listening to your body, you're contacting life force energy. It's going to teach you, it's going to show you where you need to move next. It's going to help you say to your partner, hey, I would love if you like pulled out of me and just placed a hand on my ass and like kissed me gently for a little bit, right? Like like I was saying, a woman is the energetic attuner. And when we're disembodied, we often get into these unconsensual places. that often make us feel like a victim and powerless.
And that's disrespectful to ourselves.
Yeah, and disrespectful to the masculine, because he doesn't know.
Sure.
If the woman is the spiritual authority, how is he supposed to know what to do with your body? Like, and how to listen to it if you can't listen to it. Right. So the most empowering thing you can do as a woman is really start to get to know what your pleasure scapes are and feel your yoni, feel your breasts. And once you do that, you have some sense of voice and autonomy over this body. And you can start to invite beautifully your partner into listening to your body as well. And that's truly what man desires. It's really right when we do it in an artful way.
I mean, if the man cares about you, he just wants you to feel good and be happy. I'm sure it'd be his dream come true if you're like, this is what I want, honey. I mean, and him to make you feel good and happy. I mean, that's a beautiful gift.
That's all he wants. And,
sure.
And I'm talking about good men. I know I've had, I've been in emotionally abusive relationships in the past. And so that's what like really launched me into this work is knowing how to discern, which is an experience that this is why we need to steward young women to know.
I'm right with you on that. Been there too. Yep.
Yeah. So once we discern that we're with a good man, like a good man only wants to serve and to love and to save you from drudgery. And, and when we...
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, right? And we have to understand that a man, his cock is his positive pole of his body.
Right.
Right? That's how he shows his love. And so when women are like making fun of men for always like touching their penises or being really like sex obsessed, it's like, well, yeah, because that's how they show their love. Like it's a literal love pull. Now
that's how they connect. Yeah,
that's how they connect. Their hearts are more like a yoni. And don't ever say that to your man because they wouldn't like that. But their hearts are more like they're the negative receptive pole of their body. So it takes time for their hearts to open up. Whereas for a woman,
backwards.
Her breasts and her heart are the positive energetic pole of her body. And then the negative receptive pole of her body is her yoni, which takes time to open up and to blossom and to receive. So we have actually this inbuilt battery system ourselves. And then when we can do that with a partner and realize you're serving Eros, the more you connect and you're energizing and revitalizing, and it's not just this act of doing and getting to this one place, being on this train. It's actually about presence and naming whatever comes up emotionally, physically, and breathing and slowing down and really beginning to feel it, right? Like just like how you feel the cup of coffee in your hands, just like you feel the sun on your face. The whole experience begins to melt into one pleasurescape that is never ending.
Oh my God, sign me up. So what I'm thinking, if I'm mind reading the listener viewer, Emily, how do women with their current partners, I mean, I can think of some of my personal good friends, where do they begin with their partner to feel safe enough to be vulnerable like that? Like there's so much water under the bridge. Some of them have been together for years, decades, and this is a whole new direction, right? And, there's hurt feelings on both sides. I mean, everyone's dealing with their stuff. Like, how do they even begin this new relationship with their body, their sexual union, their all of it?
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
You're going to mess it up. It's going to be messy. It's going to be awkward. And when you're leaving societal scripts, just like when you're leaving family scripts of how you should be, it's going to be bumpy and weird. And what you're going to be met with is a reservoir of what you're talking about, like the resentment, the times you went past your body's wanting and willing, the times that you felt like you dissociated during sex. Like all of this is going to come up. But what you can say, and like one of my teachers put it, he's like, you're so good at turning right, which is the habituated sex, right? Like the formulaic, like, let's get to some kind of pleasure. So you're spinning all the time. But when you can turn left, you have the freedom to turn left. Ooh, now we've just opened up a vast cosmos of possibility, which I call yin pleasure. And this isn't the fireworks and the big bangs and, the yang model of sex that we've all been accustomed to. This is like a whole different, like, embers and smoldering embers. And you will be confronted with all this pain from the past, that sacred sexual union. And I know that may sound really scary, but it dissolves in presence with your partner. And when this is where women that I work with, medicine, it's just presence. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be changed. It's just naming what you're feeling and your partner receiving that without being like, you're wrong or gaslighting.
No judgment.
Right. And yeah, I think that's what I want every woman to know, that she's already this tantrika. She already is that. She doesn't need to take a weekend workshop,
right?
Practices. But if she can just say to her partner, like, hey, I want to turn left instead of right. And I feel like there's something here for us. Can we just sit and breathe together as we hold each other and explore oxytocin rich experiences rather than the drive to get to that dopamine orgasm high, and just see what happens.
Is that what orgasm is, Emily? Is it a dopamine rush?
It is. Yeah. There's like this, in science, they talk about the passion cycle, and, all the time we're focusing on orgasm. And I was a lot too. I was like,
our culture is.
Yeah, when I can get that cervical orgasm, I'll be the most woman. When I can get that, G-pad orgasm, I'll finally feel free. And those things are all, yes, very important and pleasurable and beautiful. And every woman, that's your birthright, and it's possible for every woman. But it's one part of the deepest essence of you. It's one part. And pleasure, when we really start to fall into this yin space and our partner gifts us, because we're not entitled to it, but when he gives us that space and time to experience more of our body, we melt into this place, like what I was talking about, like just even touching your cheek can be so pleasurable because you're not trying to get somewhere. You're not worried that he's trying to get somewhere.
Right.
You're right here together. And it completely changes the biochemistry of your body, because now there's bonding happening. There's a pair bonding happening through your conscious sexual touch. And maybe it's non-sexual touch. Maybe it's just like you're holding each other's faces. Maybe you're giving each other a massage. Maybe you're just eye gazing and kissing and breathing, right? Without agenda, without needing to get anywhere. That in itself is a feminine libido healer for anyone who feels shut down around sex. And if you're feeling shut down around sex, like, you're not broken. Your body is giving you a actual biofeedback response that is saying, I don't feel safe. But I'm not sure how to name it. I just don't feel safe. And oxytocin rich touch will help you get on those rose colored glasses. So you don't look at your partner in fear and revulsion, but actual I know this man, and I trust this man.
Yeah, that's the key.
Yeah, which doesn't mean that we can't or ever won't have those dopamine orgasmic state orgasms, but you're actually falling into more of an orgasmic state, a constant orgasmic state, which really is where the feminine thrives.
Well, I think so much of what you just said makes me think about how, for unfortunately so many women, yours truly included, I had been so much in my head during sexual relations of like, what is he thinking? Or judging my body. And I know women worry about how their body looks during different positions or whatever, and good Lord, that so gets in the way of being present and feeling and just that judgmental mind. It's like the opposite of embodiment and relaxing and receiving. And because you're thinking, what is he thinking? And forget it. Like you're totally out of touch with your body.
Yes.
When you're going there. So what do we do?
So, right. So what you're speaking to is split consciousness. It's the split that lives in our body, right? We're half inside our body and we're half outside. And when we're inside our body, we're policing it to make sure that it entices the man and that he'll stay around. But it's just such a powerless place. However, I say that with the utmost compassion because I've been practicing sacred sexuality with my partner. And I get into heady places all the time. And that's okay, right? The practice is, and this is why I have my own feminine practice, because it's a practice of coming into the tips of your fingers, your glutes, feeling the back of your legs, and noticing when you tessellate or ping pong up to your head and get pulled elsewhere. This is a practice. And like we said, that spills over to the rest of your life. How much are you actually here with your kid, with your friends, with your pet?
In your body.
In your body, right?
During your day, Yeah.
Right. And we can also track that back to the split between the Cartesian divide, they call it, because Descartes and his philosophies just created this split from head and body. And so we really do have to do work of, and this is woman's work. This is the holiest of work. Like your pleasure practice, your feminine embodiment will save lives. It will get you back down into your root, into your breasts, into your belly. And only then will your partner start to be able to listen because you're in your body. So,
which is your power.
It's your power. It's the goddess.
So what is your feminine practice? When you said, in addition to your sexual relationship with your husband, you have your own feminine practice. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, for me, and I mean, it's completely yard sailed since I've gotten into motherhood because I have an altar here and I have all my oils and just even the fact of being able to I remember growing up, my mom would slap on lotion on her body and just run off and do the next.
Get it done. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whew. What is it like to truly put on some music, lay down a blanket and oil your own body?
I love it.
It's as simple as that, right?
So powerful. Yep.
Yeah. And what is it like to oil your own breasts and anoint your belly and feel your pubic hair and your vulva and your inner thighs, just that alone, that's a beautiful feminine practice. And noticing when you jump up to your head and think about the thing you have to do in 10 minutes or what that person said a week ago, right? That's okay. It's all welcome. It doesn't mean you're a bad feminine practitioner. It just means that you're finally arriving in your body and all these parts want to catch up with you. And so just breathe and let them come and go. And right. And this is the feminine practice is Shakti. It's movement oriented, right? And the Shiva practice or the masculine practice is building stillness and capacity. Okay. And so, in our, there's a lot of masculine derived healing modalities like meditation, they're all good. Meditation, like breath work, cold plunge, and that's great. But though, we have to remember that woman is God embodied. We are the closest to God. And men work their entire lives in ashrams just to feel what we feel naturally every day. And we take it for granted, or we think it's the worst thing ever. I'm not sure why that happens.
Or we're not in touch with it. We're not tapping into it.
We call it woo-woo, right? But no, this is truly your feminine gift. And so moving into Shakti practices or finding those small sips throughout the day to receive life to receive God, like you are that vessel. And so for me now in motherhood, something that I got really like nerded out on and wanted to share because I knew there was a lot of shame and guilt around it was erotic breastfeeding.
What's that? I never heard that.
I know, right? I felt as soon as I started breastfeeding baby Hawk, like I felt immense pleasure.
Oh, okay. I have heard this. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, ooh, okay, it's cool. I know how to move pleasure sensations through my body, through breath. I'm going to do that while I breastfeed.
But that's like life nature's way of making sure women breastfeed. Like it's pleasurable for you. That's a good business plan. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. It's how life ensures life continues.
Exactly.
Right? And that's the thing. I'm like, oh, I'm God embodied. So I don't need to push this sensual energy away, compartmentalize it because I think it's bad or it's not valid.
Or
it's
appropriate.
Like, or appropriate. Yeah. I'm going to cultivate this and breathe into it and drop into my breasts instead of just, women, when you become a mother, you feel really accountable to everybody else. And it's like, right, your brain is out here on the periphery and you feel like, that's where you get into the, like, oh, I'm just a cow. I feel empty. I feel like my body isn't mine. No, your body will always be yours because that's that same mindset of powerlessness that we've been fed. And so when we drop back into the energy of my breasts and the Hawk is suckling at them, I can move that energy down my belly, down to my womb, my vulva, and back up to my upper lip because there is an actual nerve channel pathway between all these places. Like it's already inbuilt. We don't have to work that hard. That's just what I'm saying. None of this is accessed by effort. It's only awareness. And that's when we get to surrender into it. The life force is already there. We're just paying attention to it. That's it. We don't have to do all these crazy things to get there, which our male counterparts, it's an exogenous journey for them. They have to go up and climb and conquer that mountain to experience God. For women, it's an endogenous journey. It's already here. It's already here. So
you just explained the heroine's journey versus the hero's journey.
Right.
They're different for females and males. The males, it's outside, and females, it comes back to the inside.
Down and in. To the in.
That's so powerful. I mean, when you mention erotic breastfeeding, it makes me think like the woman who would immediately freak out and judge herself like something shameful or wrong, like sexualizing her baby or something, no, what I hear you saying is no, just don't judge it. Just kind of go with it. It's kind of nature's plan. It's all, it's feeding you too. Like this is a beautiful symbiotic relationship here. Doesn't mean it's bad,
It doesn't. And it's poured over into my, my relationship with Rob in terms of like, we've been making the best love of our lives in my postpartum phase. And
I was going to ask you about that next. Cool.
It's so cool. And I really it's because I did preconception pleasure work. It's because I inhabit my breasts and I don't carry the weight of culture's shame, North America's weird relationship with breasts. Right. And I don't feel shameful about my sexual energy. I know that this is the gift of being a woman. And I've really done the work of championing that.
I love it. And what I hear you saying is, my goodness, so much has happened in a short period of time for you, but it's like you're becoming a queen of your queendom. And this is a very, back to our heroine's journey, right? It's making me think of the course that I have. This is my online course membership. We talk about the 4 phases, and I'm working on the queen lesson right now. And your queendom is being worked out as we speak. I can see it happening in you, and you're blossoming and materializing and digging in deep and manifesting and it's just so beautiful to see a living example of it once again, because you just went through the warrior last time you were on the show. So makes sense.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And the birth portal for me in pregnancy was the most self-actualizing experience. And it was so intact because that's what I desired. And
you wanted to have a baby and give birth?
Yes. And I prayed for, I did a home birth. Okay. And I just wanted it to be me and Rob. I did have a midwife and doula, but they came in near like the last couple of hours. And that was
to help you deliver, right? Like you had someone there besides Rob?
So I got into the transition phase, which is the most dilated. And it had just been me and Rob for hours of labor. And then the doula brought me to the toilet and like told me to go down into my cervix and breathe into this experience instead of trying to like escape it. And I reached into my own vulva and vagina and felt the fuzzy head of my baby. And I was just like, this is why I teach and work hard to embody my anatomy, and not work hard. It was hard fought wisdom to come back to the beauty of my anatomy. And it was so powerful to catch my own baby. And I birthed it just in the bathroom right over here, the little hot.
Okay. So you're saying you birthed your own baby with your hands?
Yes.
And the doula was sitting next to you, but not doing anything?
Yeah.
Holy moly. And how about Rob being able to hold that whole experience?
Exactly. He was my shaman. And at one point he was like pushing on my hips, like my upper hips to like open up the pelvic inlet. And that was so powerful to have him engaged in the experience the whole time. And
amazing.
And then he helped me birth my placenta. And
Oh, what do you mean? Is that's after, right?
Yeah.
That's separate. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so intense.
But
I never heard anyone explain birthing.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Oh boy.
And Rob and I looked at each other after as we were holding Hawk, and it was just like, oh my God, we can do anything. And I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, my postpartum's just been like so easy breezy. It's been the most challenging ever. Like, sleepless nights, baby not like crying. I'm going back to school. Rob is like holding down the house sometimes. Like, it's been so hard. However, pleasure and our connection to each other and our sexual relationship has been the anchor, because we did that work in the preconception. And this is available to every woman if she wants to be the energetic attuner. Like, he will set the frame for you, but you got to go down and in and really start to reclaim your pelvic health on every level, from the gynecologist, from the obstetrician, from your partner, from society. Reclaim it as your own, and then alchemize some of the anger that you may have around it, so that we can come back and birth a whole new culture, that we can instill a whole new narrative for our sons and daughters.
I love that. Now, I love this expression, and I'm going to be quoting you on that, being the energetic attuner. Bang on. Nailed it right there. That's it. And, even in like popular culture, people might have heard the expression of how that silly thing, what is it? A happy wife, happy life. Like a lot of people kind of know that inherently. Like, you want to keep the woman happy because there's nothing like her being pissed at home, throwing the dishes around, or passive aggressive with the food or whatever, But I love that you're saying that. What was it, Emily, that you referred to the man? You said the woman is the energetic attuner. The man sets the structure. Is that what you said? The frame. Can you just expand on that quickly before and I know we're getting toward the end here. I got to let you go. But
And I just wanted to say one more thing about that. So the man sets the frame. The woman sets the tone.
Okay.
And so and we all feel this, like, I know when my nervous system's super dysregulated, which it happens, life isn't regulated. It's not a bad thing. We just need to know how to get back, or like drop back into our regulated bodies. But like Hawk is all crazy when I'm dysregulated, right? My baby is feeling it, right?
Just like the animals. My dogs are the same way. The chickens, like, yep.
Yes. They feel you, right? That's how
you're the mama. They take your energy for sure.
Exactly. So women have to remember that we have so much more power. It's just not done in the physical plane. It's in the spiritual plane. Energetic plane. If you are radically responsible, like that's a huge responsibility. So what does that mean? Yep. That means that your pleasure is a nutrient. It is that essential. It means that your self-care is that essential. It means that your boundaries, you saying no, that's also essential, because if you are depleted and totally burnt out, that's going to ripple into your family. And this is where women tend to then get into a ton of resentment, because we've all been conditioned to be the hyper-driven, independent, I can do it all.
Yep.
Have to be a martyr, have to overgive in order to be of value. And no wonder our world is in the state that it is in, is because we are not taking ourselves seriously. However, this doesn't mean that you can wield and weaponize your emotions like shame, like anger or rage,
guilt
on man. It just doesn't. It means that we need to do the work of metabolizing it ourselves, because woman is this ocean of emotion. Man is the emotional authority. And so when I realized the way I feel is not, Rob is not responsible for the way I feel, it changed our relationship. Because all I can say, instead of like, and I still do this, ladies, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still weaponize my emotions. And then I'm like, oh, wait, okay, let's backtrack. Rob, I actually just feel really scared right now.
Aww.
And that's all I have to say. And he can be the frame, hold me.
Nice.
I got you. I understand.
Perfect.
Because he's also a fallible human being in this messy human experience.
Give each other some grace.
Totally.
Mm-hmm. So that's what you mean by the man as the frame, in that he can hold the space. Just to clarify that a little bit, he the frame, be steady, like he can take the storm type thing. Like he's not all over the place.
Well, yeah, like a woman
like
is
reactive.
Like yeah, a woman is like
he's
feeling so emotional, right? Because we are on the energetic plane.
Uh-huh.
But David Data says a lot of men, what they do is put women's big emotional body into a swimming pool.
Oh, I have not heard this.
Okay. When she's in a swimming pool, like that's just such containment, right? That's a really small frame. Right. She's going to feel bad for having any big emotion, and then she won't actually be able to feel anything.
Put in a kiddie pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? Like, you shouldn't feel that way. Like, why are you reacting?
I've heard that my whole life. Yep.
Right? You're too much. Oh, ladies. But we have to be radically responsible for our emotions and not weaponize them. That way, when I have a huge emotional experience, it's not about Rob. Rob is actually just there to hold the space, be the frame, be the ocean bottom to my massive ocean experience.
Got it.
Comprende?
Okay. Yes, now I got it. That was a very good taking me to school on that one, because I never heard, I don't know, just that concept. I mean, I've heard, of course, I've studied David Data as well and all that, but, and the man being the, weathering the storm and being the constant and being able to, hold that feminine energy power. But the frame, that just a different nuance of it that I really am grateful for and appreciate you saying, because it makes it sound very, just very positive, because just like you, Emily, we are women advocates, but we love men and we appreciate men, and we have compassion for men. Men have had it rough just like women have. They have their own stuff. And this is all about us coming together in a complementary, supportive way, authentic, so we can all be fully integrated, self-actualized, who we were meant to be. And it's not about competition or right or wrong, or, I know you feel that way too, my sister.
Yeah.
So that's part of why, and I just got goosebumps again. That's part of why I just love every time we connect, because I just feel, I don't know, I think we knew each other in a past life where we were like, seriously, Amazons together. Yes. I'm not kidding. I get these it's just crazy. But I get these visions of us like shoulder to shoulder in like armor. Like, I don't know. It's like, here we are again in different form, but we're traversing this mission together because we both, as we wrap this up here, we both live the first half of our lives feminine women, but very identify with our masculines and strong athletes. I didn't achieve the acclaim you did athletically, but I played internationally too, some sports, but not to the level you did. But yeah, very athletic. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the show, tomboy oriented, all that. And now here you and I have come full circle of not poo-pooing that masculine quality in us, not shaming it, berating it, rather expanding on it and bringing in, welcoming the feminine as well, because she was repressed. And they're both beautiful, both appreciated, both important. And I, like you, feel grateful that I can live now the second half of my life being able to bring her in, because the more I'm doing that, the more powerful I've become, and the more just life is better. Just life is better. Life is easier. It's definitely more enjoyable. I have a lot to work on still, but it's just better in so many ways.
Yeah, I feel that, sister. And thank you for your reflections. And I love your warrior spirit. And I love even more your beautiful feminine spirit that I can just see blooming through this beautiful lavender ensemble that you're wearing today. And yeah, I think that is a consciousness we're really championing, is like how you make love is how you make life. And like women, we already are in the seat of our power. We've just been fed stories that we're not. And we've had experiences with maybe some unsavory people that took parts of us away, but you can always reclaim them back to birth more beauty, more truth, more love, and live in your desire. That's what the world needs.
Reclaim it back. It's so, so true. We've all have had hurts and traumas, and it's just your life, your soul, your body. Take it back, because it goes so quick, right? I mean, this life is a flash. And, it's like, thank you for people like you that help us to take it back, because we need help. Like, I mean, yeah, in a way it's easy, but it's like, but how do I do that? Like, what do I do? I want to. So tell us about your offerings now and where we can find you, because I know you do this beautiful coaching one-on-one and the powerful work you do.
Thank you. I love my work so much. I feel so met by it. And so in 2025, I'm running an 8-week program called the Cosmic Courtesan. And it's all about it's all about sexual relations and how to like work with your partner as you awaken more into your body, how to soften these spaces and truly land in this new yin pleasure and expand, turning right and turning left, going up and down and all around. So that's going to be running next year. And then I also have my foundational program, which is Hammer of the Goddess. It's for the tomboys that felt like they weren't a woman. And this is a 6-month journey to explore your feminine essence and really start to align with her from the physiological, biochemical level to the biostructural, your pelvis, your body, your breasts, and this sacred sexual spiritual level.
And tell us the formats for these. Are these monthly Zoom calls, or like what do these look like?
It's a call every week, because I really love to get into the rhythm and the pattern of it. There's
a group call, like everybody on a Zoom. Okay.
Yeah. And we have support groups. I have like online material. And then I do one-to-one work in person and online with pelvic integration and sacred sexuality. And then this summer, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to have a young women's course, like women.
Yes.
They're
so needed.
Yeah. They need to be stewarded and loved and really shown how powerful their sexual energy is, so they don't have to do all this work later. And what womanhood can really be like when you're in the seat of the pelvis. So that's going to be running in the summer, and it's for our daughters. It's for this next generation. So
okay, you have got to promise me you will reach out before that launches, because I want you back to help talk about that program and you get into it, because my God, is that needed. Thank God you're doing that. Thank you for this important, critically important work for women and for men, for all of us, for humanity. Okay, last question before I let you just recap where exactly we can go to find you. Any references for us, Emily? Favorite authors, favorite books, resources, I don't know, other than your courses, of course, that just, for the woman that really wants to explore what we got into today, for her to learn more?
Any of the work of Barry Long.
I never even heard of him.
I know.
Barry Long, Long.
And then Diane Richardson. They're incredible. She taught, or was studied under Barry Long.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. And how can people find you and your courses and the private coaching?
Maiden Medicine, MAIDEN -medicine.com. And that's my website. You'll find me on Instagram. I do have a newsletter that I'm going to be writing in more coming 2025. So yeah, that's how you can find me and reach out to me.
Okay, so it's Maiden Medicine with an I as in maid, but your last name, which is hysterical, is Maiden with no I, which is unbelievable. I always say God has a sense of humor. That is so beautiful. Previously, it was Abbott, like episode 101, your first appearance, which everybody has got to go listen to. And even if you heard it once, go listen to it again after this one, because you're going to get a lot about that in embodiment and all that. But it's just amazing how your name is now Maiden.
It's so funny.
I mean, it's like a God wink right there.
Yeah, it is. Tip of the hat.
All right, my friend. Any final thoughts?
No, I'm complete. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. Please do check out Emily's amazingly important work, her previous episodes, and we'll see you all next time on Awakening Aphrodite.